The American Civil War was a brutal conflict that tore the nation apart, leaving deep scars on the American landscape and psyche. It pitted brother against brother, state against state, in a bloody struggle over slavery and the meaning of freedom. Families were torn apart, and communities were divided as the nation grappled with its most profound moral and political crisis. From 1861 to 1865, the nation was consumed by war, leaving countless dead and the South in ruins. Cities were reduced to rubble, and the economy was shattered, creating a landscape of desolation and despair. But from the ashes of this devastating conflict rose a period of hope and renewal. Reconstruction. This era was marked by efforts to heal the wounds of war and to build a more just and equitable society. Reconstruction, spanning from 1865 to 1877, was a time of profound change and upheaval in American history. It was a period when the nation attempted to redefine itself and to address the deep-seated issues that had led to the Civil War. It was a period dedicated to rebuilding the war-torn South and integrating formerly enslaved people into society as free citizens. This involved not only physical reconstruction, but also social and political transformation. It was an era of both great promise and bitter disappointment, marked by both remarkable progress and violent resistance. While there were significant advancements in civil rights, there was also fierce opposition from those who sought to maintain the old social order. The goals of Reconstruction were ambitious: to reunify the divided nation, rebuild the shattered South, and ensure civil and political rights for African Americans. These goals were pursued through a combination of federal legislation, military intervention, and grassroots activism. This period saw the passage of landmark legislation, including the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution, which abolished slavery, guaranteed equal protection under the law, and granted African American men the right to vote. These amendments were monumental steps toward achieving equality and justice. Reconstruction was a time of both great hope and bitter struggle, a time when the nation grappled with the legacy of slavery and the meaning of freedom. The period was characterized by significant achievements as well as profound setbacks. It was a period that laid the groundwork for the civil rights movement a century later and continues to shape American society today. The struggles and triumphs of Reconstruction have left an enduring legacy that informs our ongoing quest for equality and justice. The Civil War ended in April 1865 with the surrender of Confederate General Robert E. Lee to Union General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia. This moment marked the conclusion of a brutal and bloody conflict that had torn the nation apart for 4 long years. The war had left the South devastated, its economy in ruins, its infrastructure destroyed, and its people deeply divided. The once thriving plantations lay in waste, and cities that had been bustling with life were now reduced to rubble and ashes. Adding to the turmoil, President Abraham Lincoln, the great emancipator who had guided the nation through its darkest hour, was assassinated just days after the war's end. His leadership had been a beacon of hope for many, and his loss was felt deeply across the country. Lincoln's assassination on April 14, 1865, at the hands of Confederate sympathizer John Wilkes Booth, sent shockwaves through the nation. The tragic event unfolded at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., leaving the nation in a state of mourning and uncertainty. It was a devastating blow to the cause of Reconstruction, robbing the nation of its leader at a critical juncture. The country was left to grapple with the immense task of rebuilding and healing without the guidance of the man who had envisioned a united and free America. President Andrew Johnson media portrait of President Andrew Johnson: with Lincoln's death, the task of overseeing Reconstruction fell to me, his Vice President Andrew Johnson, a Southern Democrat from Tennessee. I was thrust into a role that required delicate handling of a fractured nation. As a former slave owner myself, I held deeply racist views and had little sympathy for the plight of formerly enslaved people. My background and beliefs influenced my approach to Reconstruction, often clashing with the ideals of equality and justice. I believed in a lenient approach to Reconstruction, one that would allow the southern states to rejoin the Union with minimal interference from the federal government. My policies aimed to restore the pre-war social order as quickly as possible, often at the expense of newly freed African Americans. This approach put me at odds with the radical Republicans in Congress who favored a more stringent approach to Reconstruction, one that would guarantee civil and political rights for African Americans. They sought to transform Southern society and ensure that the rights of the formerly enslaved were protected and upheld. The tension between my administration and the radical Republicans led to significant conflict during the Reconstruction era. The struggle to define the future of the United States and the place of African Americans within it became a central issue, shaping the nation's path forward in the years to come. In the immediate aftermath of the Civil War, there was a brief period of optimism and hope for African Americans in the South. With the shackles of slavery broken, many former slaves embraced their newfound freedom with joy and anticipation. They sought to reunite with loved ones separated by slavery, establish their own churches and schools, and exercise their newly acquired rights as citizens. The federal government, under the auspices of the War Department, established the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, commonly known as the Freedmen's Bureau, in March 1865. This agency provided crucial assistance to formerly enslaved people, including food, clothing, medical care, and education. It also helped to negotiate labor contracts between freed people and white landowners and to settle land disputes. Freedmen, media, African American man expressing gratitude towards the Freedmen's Bureau. For many of us African Americans, the Freedmen's Bureau represented a beacon of hope and a tangible symbol of the federal government's commitment to our well-being. The Bureau's efforts, while often understaffed and underfunded, played a vital role in easing the transition from slavery to freedom for millions of us African Americans. Section 4, the rise of radical Reconstruction. Andrew Johnson's lenient Reconstruction policies, however, quickly drew the ire of the radical Republicans in Congress. Johnson's approach was seen as too forgiving towards the former Confederate states, allowing them to reintegrate into the Union without significant changes to their social and political structures.
The radical Republicans, a faction within the Republican Party, were staunch advocates for a more stringent and transformative approach to Reconstruction. They believed that Johnson's approach was far too lenient and did not go far enough to protect the rights of African Americans. They argued that without federal intervention, the Southern states would continue to oppress the newly freed African American population.
They argued that the former Confederate states should be treated as conquered territories, subject to strict federal oversight and control, and that African Americans should be granted full citizenship rights, including the right to vote. This was seen as essential to ensuring their protection and participation in the new social order.
In 1866, the radical Republicans gained control of Congress, a pivotal moment that allowed them to push forward their agenda. With their newfound power, they began to implement their own vision of Reconstruction, one that was far more radical and transformative than Johnson's.
They passed a series of laws known as the Reconstruction Acts of 1867, which fundamentally reshaped the South. These acts divided the South into 5 military districts, each occupied by federal troops. This military presence was intended to enforce the new laws and protect African Americans from violence and intimidation. These acts also required the former Confederate states to ratify the 14th Amendment, which granted citizenship to African Americans and guaranteed equal protection under the law as a condition for readmission to the Union. This was a significant step towards ensuring legal equality for African Americans.
The Reconstruction Acts marked a turning point in the Reconstruction era. They represented a bold assertion of federal power over the states and a clear commitment to protecting the rights of African Americans. They represented a bold assertion of federal power over the states and a clear commitment to protecting the rights of African Americans. This period saw significant changes in the social and political landscape of the South.
The presence of federal troops in the South, while controversial, was crucial in maintaining order and enforcing the new laws, helped to suppress violence against African Americans, and ensured that they could exercise their newly acquired rights. This period laid the groundwork for future civil rights advancements despite the many challenges and resistance faced. Section 5, a beacon for the newly freed. The Freedmen's Bureau, established in 1865 as a temporary agency to assist formerly enslaved people, played a crucial role in the Reconstruction era.
Despite facing constant opposition and funding shortages, the Bureau provided essential services to millions of African Americans across the South. It helped to reunite families separated by slavery, provided food, clothing, and medical care, and established schools and hospitals.
One of the Bureau's most significant achievements was its role in promoting education for African Americans. Prior to the Civil War, it was illegal in most southern states to teach enslaved people to read or write.
The Freedmen's Bureau established thousands of schools for African Americans across the South, staffed by both black and white teachers, many of whom were idealistic volunteers from the North.
These schools, often referred to as freedom schools, provided a vital lifeline for African Americans eager to acquire the knowledge and skills they had been denied under slavery. They represented a powerful symbol of hope and opportunity for a people eager to embrace their newfound freedom.